Welcome everybody to the O.M Space podcast. My name is Renee.
Murray.
And
Jennah.
Yeah, we have Jennah.
Yeah.
So Jennah is a beautiful member of our community. And she is also in your final year?
Final.
Yeah, of studying nutrition. Is that the whole bachelor or is that?
It's a Bachelor of Health Science in Nutritional and Dietetic Medicine.
Perfect, that's the official,
Yeah.
the official term. So today we wanted to chat about nutrition broadly, but food and diets in relation to spirituality, spiritual practices. We've been having some conversations with people around this idea of what you need to eat to be a good yogi, to be a good meditator, to be spiritual, enlightened, more spacious. So instead of replying in short text, we thought we might open up this conversation and particularly invite someone who has a little bit more knowledge than we do with the science kind of stuff of it.
So we were pushed to do this because we had some members within the community reaching out to us and questioning us, and we delivered some information just through some short Instagram stories on our Instagram. And so myself and Renee, we have a lot to offer, but we can only offer what we have. And when we get to a point where maybe we feel like the information we have isn't broad enough and we don't know enough about it, then we just call in people that do know. And this is the beauty about having a community. Yeah. Within a community, there's always going to be someone that knows something about the topic. So.
Yeah. And it goes off our ethos as well, our manifesto of we learn from each other. So this space isn't just about Murray and I or the other teachers here leading the way. It's about having this open conversation with everyone and all learning from each other. So let's start with Jennah. Why did you start studying in this area of nutrition and health sciences?
It's a little bit of a story, so I'll try and tell it quickly. I guess I really struggled with eating disorders for quite a large portion of my life. So it started when I was about 15, so over 20 years ago. So I then went through high school, went through my first degree in commerce, did a lot of work in just sort of a corporate role before starting to really fall into wanting to know more, wanting to really understand nutrition. I then was studying that and fell, I guess, back into it, back into having quite an intense eating disorder. But it just really creeps up on you, I think, like a lot of distractions we might choose in life. It just sort of creeps up when things aren't going so well. So yeah, it was only about 3 years ago now, so I was about a year into the degree, and I had a lot of health issues because of it. So I guess the biggest thing I noticed was issues with my legs, so my lymphatic system. So at that point, I was about probably 15 kilos lighter than I am now, so it was about 47 kilos. But my legs were really swelling. They were really painful and really tight. And being a beach girl that likes to go to the beach every day, I couldn't go to the beach anymore because I could barely walk on them.
Wow.
I couldn't wear, I was embarrassed, so I wouldn't wear skirts that didn't cover my ankles and my legs and things like that. And I also couldn't keep my body temperature regulated, so I was really struggling in the cold and ended up moving home. So I spent a bit of time with my family. I went down the path of going to a GP. So at that point I was referred to an eating disorder clinic, and I was also prescribed some medication for anxiety. Being a year into the degree, I knew a little bit, and enough to make me feel like the medication wasn't for me. Now that's a very, very personal choice, and certainly everyone has a choice in that space, but I just didn't feel like it was for me. And then a family friend who was a GP came around to our house. It was just kind of timing. She actually noticed my legs, and she had studied nutrition before being a GP. and just straight off the bat, she just started asking me about protein. And I went and got some recent blood tests that I had, and sure enough, my protein levels were significantly deficient. And she just explained to me a little bit about how protein works and the different types. And there's one in particular called albumin. And what was happening was, in just kind of one of her ideas, was it affects your intra and extracellular fluid. So my body was really struggling because it didn't have enough protein in it. Yeah. And I just remember in that one conversation and that one moment, suddenly food wasn't about weight or being fat or thin or what you look like. It was, how does it function in your body? You know, food became even more powerful than I thought it was. And the more you look into it, and my passions with mental health and nutrition, the more you look into, I guess, the simplicity of nature and getting our food from nature, and how aligned it is with the body and the different functions of the food, as opposed to calories, which I've never ever counted. It's like, what is the food doing to my body? Like, it's got roles in our neurotransmitters, in our hormones, in our enzymes, in our bones, everything. And I think, actually, I was saying to Renee the other day, I was struggling studying for an exam a couple of years ago, and I remember pulling out the periodic table, which I struggled with in year 11 chemistry, because I was like, oh, what's all these numbers and whatever. And I pulled it out, and I literally had this aha moment where I was like, we are made of the same stuff. So whether people are choosing a plant-based diet, choosing to eat meat, whatever it is, oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, magnesium, iron, calcium, we're made of nature. So I just have this real passion, I guess, now of understanding how is the food functioning in the body, and having fun with it too. It doesn't mean you can't have your treats and things like that. The body is innately powerful at healing when we allow it. So that's a bit of a
I really like that, the analogy, like once you move away, because like this happened with me as well. When I used to look at food, firstly you mentioned in your story, like we bring in these distractions, and definitely for me there was just times when in my life as well when I would reach for distractions.
Totally.
And at times food was one of them, but mine was the opposite. I would like eat a lot. But also you touched on how when we change our view on what food is and we see it as a medicine, then the relationship changes.
Totally.
When we see it as a way to heal the body instead of, if I eat enough of this, then I'm going to look like this. And definitely this has happened. Like, I've proven this to myself through some of the diets I've run before, foolishly. I'll get the result that I want, but I'll lose a lot of other things at the same time.
I think a prime example was when you went vegan keto.
I was already plant-based, and then I just decided, and I do this, I run tests on myself all the time like this, and like I don't talk about it too openly because I don't encourage other people to do it. Like, I'm super tuned in with my body and I know when enough is enough. But I went strict keto vegan, and if anyone knows that, then through plant-based you've got to eat a lot of legumes to get your protein, but they also contain a lot of carbs, so all of that went, and I was pretty much just running on just fat, just plant-based fats. And in the end, like I achieved what I wanted to achieve, to see if I could get to a certain amount of body fat, but what I lost in the process was my strength. At the time I believed that I had this clarity of thinking, but the more I looked into it, and I knew this at the time, but the more I looked into it, what I was doing was running in survival mode. The body was starving, and the mind was just so switched on all the time. It was just like looking. So I'll come back to, I really like that idea of when we shift our perspective that food is medicine.
And I think that that kind of leads into, I can only speak for myself, I guess, kind of what you're saying of, I run on intuitive eating. I've never run a diet, and I think when I was younger, teenage and probably early 20s, probably even still now, I have this distant relationship with food because I lost my sense of smell, so I didn't get enjoyment out of food. Like a lot of people get the enjoyment of the smell and the taste, and I think everything for me is kind of a different shade of grey, for want of a better word. Like I don't get that real depth in food, so I lost or didn't really learn to have a deep appreciation for food. So food was just a come and go. I could eat rice and tuna all day every day, and that was enough, and I kind of would lose my appetite with it as well because I didn't salivate over food, so it was like I might get a little bit hungry, but then I could keep moving through it, and so wouldn't really have that desire to eat. But it has in the past few years evolved into understanding like what works for my body, what is required, and what makes me feel good intuitively. So if anyone's done any courses with Murray and I, we use muscle testing, and so I would lean on muscle testing to help listen to my body, find out what it is that it needed intuitively, as opposed to going, well, I've got to have this or I've got to have that. And it would be confronting for some people, especially when I got into the more spiritual and yogi realms, of having to explain to certain people, I eat red meat. I'm allowed to to practice yoga and eat red meat, because for my particular body it doesn't store plant iron that well. And I went through this at the end of last year where I had to have iron infusions and got really sick, and my iron storage levels got so low they couldn't even register them. And that was from focus. I was heavily plant-based for a while, and my body just went, no, this doesn't work for me, for my body.
So I spoke about in one of the stories was prana positive food and prana negative food, meaning, and I think this is one of the topics that you wanted to touch on, was food that gives you life and food that removes life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky. I help out at our farmers market on a Sunday. So, I turn up at a farmers market just to help on a stall at about 4:30. And most of those farmers probably haven't slept much that night, and they have pulled our food out of the ground that week. So you were turning up and you're buying something that's generally pulled out of the ground a day or two before, and you can feel it. You're around it, and when you go to that farmers market, you can get meat, you can get dairy, you can get fish, and obviously all your fruit and veg. And I guess that, to me, that's certainly how I shop. I'm rarely at a supermarket. I have a real, and again, we're all have a personal kind of experience and choice, but I have a real issue with a lot of the food marketing and products and things that are sold as food that really never needed to be produced in the first place.
100%.
So all of those food products that have, even if I take one example which comes to mind, which is something like like a nut milk. Even if you were to look at all the different nut milks that are on the market, so many of them are filled with a minimum maybe 3 to 7% almonds, and then it's a whole bunch of other chemicals and things to make them blend well. As opposed to just using the almonds and having the fresh almond milk made. There's a very different life force and a very different interaction with the physiology of the body. So you're putting these chemicals in the body, they're interacting with things like your neurotransmitters and your hormones, and they're altering our physiology as opposed to taking the whole food. So, I understand that, we can't all just go out and make almond milk. I certainly don't. I'm very lucky in that I buy Millie's hemp milk. We have the healthy cocktail here in Newcastle. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Plug.
Millie is amazing too.
She's amazing. And she makes a hemp milk, and it's literally the hemp seeds, I think of it as cinnamon, and she delivers it to your door.
Super old fashioned, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And reuses the glass bottle, so you're also not using this package that gets thrown away. And so all I encourage people to do is read the ingredients list on a food product. If it's numbers, or if you don't know what they are, it's probably not food.
Totally. I believe this also. I think there's certain whole aisles within the supermarket that should be banned. I think what they're selling is actually poison, and I don't mind saying that out loud. And I know this from my own experience when I was younger, like being diagnosed with all of these different things like ADHD and all this sort of stuff, and then told that I'd be on medication for my whole life to treat this, when in fact when I changed my diet, all of those symptoms went away. I was just super sensitive to some of these things, and even now, like if I choose to go out and eat like chocolate or high sugar stuff, then I feel the difference like straight away, like something happens here instantly, and then there's the ripple effect the day after. Definitely there's a crash, there's like a come down off it.
And I think, you know, it is absolutely still about being able to have your treats. You know, I have one friend who, every time I catch up with her, because people do this when you're studying nutrition, she'll be telling me her sins, and it's, oh my gosh, I can't give up on my chocolate. She eats a bit of chocolate.
Telling you their sins.
They do.
It's like if they know you're like heavily involved in it, it's just like, I can share with this person. Get the guilt and shame out.
Yeah, it's really funny. But when she tells me I can't give up on my chocolate, she smiles, and I'm like, how do you feel when you eat it? And she's like, so happy. I'm like, well, eat it. You know, our bodies innately can deal with a certain amount of toxins. They're always trying to be back into balance. And what you talked about earlier about the nervous system, it's when the nervous system is calm that everything else can operate. So even in our recent events, people that went into the heightened fear state, their immune systems.
Just for everyone, we're in the middle of the COVID-19.
Oh, yeah. What?
You don't know what that is.
That thing that happened. So that's what I say to my girlfriend all the time. I'm like, if you're eating a little bit of chocolate every day and it is making you feel good, it's fine. If you're sitting at home and you're eating a whole bunch of stuff and then feeling awful for it, that's a very different story.
Make a decision.
Yeah.
And then we even have like a decision in that moment too. So if like, and I believe that we also need like the sweets. I was only having a discussion with a friend the other day, because he runs like a quite a tight diet as well, and he's a personal trainer and all of that stuff. And he said, but my mum made chocolate cake and it's the same recipe that she made when I was a kid, and it's just like, well, why wouldn't you engage in that? Like you're sitting there with your mum, and it's like bringing up really good like emotions and memories. It's like it's good for the mental wellness. And then I think also in the same moment we have options, like whether we reach for, and I don't care throwing names out, like if we reach for Cadbury or we reach for Prana. Pana. So two identical, like both chocolate, right? Two very different ends of the spectrum. One is like organic and used like I think also vegan. So they're using like raw products as opposed to super refined products. So I think for the people that enjoy this stuff, there's still some good options available.
Totally, and it's delicious. And the processing of it all is completely different. So something like Pana, it's full of your antioxidants, and it's beautiful.
Exactly right. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
And if we were to tie this into spiritual practices, I guess, in the context of yoga and meditation and energy work and expansion, when we look at these foods that take away life force, so those over-processed foods, and so your refined sugars, your caffeines, your alcohol, so we're not necessarily saying they're bad, but they definitely have that lower vibration, for want of a better word. They pull everything down. So if you're doing all of these daily practices to build up your energy, you're just negating that straight away with all of these things that are affecting neurotransmitters that are taking more energy than what they give when they need to be processed through the body. So it depends on what your goal or what your intention is. If you are moving towards this expansiveness, like we touch on this in our manifesting workshop. In
all of our workshops, there's like a lot of what we talk about, like high vibrational food and low vibrational food.
Yeah, just looking at what you're ingesting at all levels, but particularly nutritionally, because these are substances that are physically going into your body and interacting. So there are ones that you can notice that lower that vibration, that make you dense and heavy, and then ones that make you feel light. And this, I suppose, reflecting on my own personal story and journey, is where there is a mindfulness, because I know for me, when I was late teens and really getting into further my meditation practice and intuition, all that kind of stuff, I really enjoyed the light feeling that I got in meditation, that expansiveness. And what that also correlated to is whenever I ate a lot of food, especially carb heavy food, I would feel dense. So I would also then avoid that food and just look for like the fruits and the water and all this kind of stuff, which may not have had all the nutrition I needed, but it made me feel light. So there's this fine balance as well of being, when looking at the energetic practices as well, acknowledging that you're still human and that your human body needs nutrition. That some people can go deep into their spiritual, and it depends on what you're learning. Some spiritual practices require you, ask that you follow a strict diet and protocols. But if you're not following those things, it's being mindful to not deprive your body in an attempt to achieve enlightenment, expansion, fascinating.
And I touched on that in some of the stories that I put up, was like how I structure my eating around my morning practice, where I'll create a lot of space without food to do my yoga and my meditation, whatever else I was doing. And I just shared my point of view, and through my own practice, what felt best in my body. And you also practice yoga and meditation, and also have some extensive knowledge. So maybe you could share, like, maybe what your practice is with eating around also the practice of yoga and meditation.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important question, and I think, you know, we're all completely different. We all have completely different requirements based on all sorts of things, you know, whether it's an age or a life stage, or what you might be doing that day, you know. So I, for example, do a bit of running, so I might do, you know, an 8 to 10k run in a day in the afternoon, so that day that I'm doing that will be a bit different again. For me, the key way I look at it, and I like to keep it as simple as possible, because food to me should be really simple and it should be really enjoyable. I don't think anyone should ever be sitting down to something thinking they're on a diet or restricting things. I think a lifestyle should be about focusing on the things you can fill up on, as opposed to, I can't have that, shouldn't have that, leave that out. And so I always just come back to our macronutrients. So I guess when we look at nutrition overall, we typically look at macronutrients being your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrates. And we need all of them. Okay, we really need all of them. There are some recommendations for those percentages, but again, we're all a bit different with how that looks. You know, giving an Ironman advice is going to be very different to someone that doesn't really have much physical activity. And then you've got your micronutrients. But for me, I literally do my shop at the farmer's market. That takes a bit of practice too. It doesn't need to be a full day event. I really believe, and there's a lot of online options now too. Well, here locally in Newcastle anyway. Just having a plate of your protein, your carb, and your fats, you know, each have a role. So you mentioned keto before, which is basically stripping out your carbohydrates.
Okay. Strict keto would be like minimal carbs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, carbohydrates are something that I'm a bit passionate about, because your brain needs glucose. Your
100%.
brain really does.
Yeah.
And the second your brain doesn't have glucose, it'll go after your fat. So this is where...
That's the whole idea.
Yeah. So short term, that's really cool, right? In a week, you can drop a significant... And you feel it. We're like, yeah, let's do that. And people keep continuing, but then when we don't have the fat to break down, we'll start to break down protein.
That's exactly what happens.
Because this girl, this guy, kind of greedy and lazy and very black and white.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't have glucose, it'll break down other things for you. So and the same happens, you know, if you want to, because then other people will maybe not eat any fat. She or she's made of 60% fat. When you know, and I've been really lucky to experience being at some wet labs where I've held the brain.
Right.
You know, you want that brain to be kind of malleable, and so things can move fluidly around her. If you strip the fat from the body, she's stressed. She really is. So, sorry, I'm kind of going, I get a bit passionate. Yeah, to me, kind of keeping it simple, you know, protein is super, super important, as is and it's the types of fats we eat, right? So
100%.
Even doing the keto approach, I know some people might go out and just, great, I can just have bacon and eggs, I can just eat fried everything, I can eat butter.
A big topic in the keto world is like, you can pretty much by definition, you just remove carbs and you can eat whatever you want.
Totally.
As long as it's high in fat.
Yeah.
You can be vegan and have Oreos.
Yeah, exactly right. And
absolutely.
And this was a big thing when I started looking into it. There's a very big difference between like a proper clean ketosis style diet as opposed to some rogue person just choosing not to eat carbs. Two very different. Yeah.
And what all that's happened is the brain has gotten used to using fat first.
Yep.
Because it's harder for the brain effectively to break down fat for energy, and I always relate this to when you're like stressed or you're studying or you're up late and your brain's like, go and eat some sugar.
Well, it just wants the carbohydrates.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
so much easier.
Totally. So look, for me it's just that well-roundedness. So, you know, I'm always eating heaps of fruit and veg. So I mean, the recommendation is the 5 serves of veg and the 2 serves of fruit a day, which I think is really quite reasonable and really important. And then it's whole food. So again, whether you're eating meat, I personally eat fish. If I go, say, and I just did it recently, about 3 days without eating some sort of fish, I feel really something's not quite right for me.
Yeah.
And I eat eggs. Love cheese. Eat cheese. I don't eat meat. I haven't since I was about 15. I don't miss it. I don't crave it. The second I speak to vegetarians or friends of mine that are trying vegan or vegetarian, and they're saying to me, I'm craving meat, or they're eating the artificial products that again are full of stuff we don't need.
Whatever they put in there.
Yeah, you know, if you want,
if your body's asking for
and
it,
it's asking, there's a reason for it. And I think that's where it comes down to that intuitive. You know, I'll crave things, or then I might go a few days where I'm like, I don't feel like fish, I don't feel like eggs, nothing. The other really key thing, which a lot of people probably do know, is if you are going to do the vegan approach, it's really important to look into the food combining with your proteins, because your animal proteins typically have all your amino acids, and I won't go into kind of the nitty gritty, but it's everything we need. So if you're someone that eats an animal protein and you eat adequate amounts of it, you're typically fine for your protein. But if you're vegan and you choose to just eat chickpeas, you can potentially get quite unwell. And again, it's the long term. So like with keto, I can lose weight for a couple of weeks. Long term, you know, there's all sorts of health risks with a lot of these things, especially, you know, you look back to, like, I remember growing up with Mum, and it was all about cutting fat out. Like everyone.
I remember there was like an era where it was just like, fat's the issue.
Totally.
Yeah, I do remember this.
Totally. And, you know, now we've seen the increases in dementia and things like that in that population group. So, you know, while we have these short-term goals, which are really effective, it's just important to look into the long term. Yeah.
I also spoke a little bit about intermittent fasting, and the reason, like, I would do it is, well, there's a whole heap of health benefits, and I didn't give a list of them because I don't believe I'm qualified to go into that. I just shared with the people why I do it, and the intermittent fasting for me is done in the morning when I'm doing my practice. and how that helps with my morning practice and my spirituality through meditation and yoga. So your view on intermittent fasting?
Yeah, look, I think, and you mentioned a little bit, there is a lot of evidence in support of it. When I did listen to your story, I did think it was a little bit extreme, but you've worked up to that.
Totally, yeah.
I've also got friends who do it more around, like, they'll stop eating at like 6 o'clock, but then they might eat at like 8 in the morning. So what's that like?
So they're sleeping whilst they're doing the fast.
Yeah.
14, 12, 14 hours.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And that to me has a lot of, I don't know if validity is the right word, because you're allowing the digestive system to do its work.
Yeah.
So if we go to bed
with a full stomach.
or too late and we don't give it the window, it's kind of like letting the night cleaners come in. It's like if you sneak your mates in here and have a really late night party so the cleaners can't come in, you're going to turn up, we're going to turn up to 6 a.m. Like if you guys have a massive party before next week and we come in for the 6 a.m. fast and there's just stuff everywhere, we're not really going to be able to practice all that well. So allowing the cleaners to come in overnight and do their thing, and same with the immune system. So if your body's not busy just digesting the food you've put in it, your immune system can go to work. It does a bit of a clean-up everywhere. So that's where the fasting can be really, really effective.
Awesome.
For all sorts of things. But I mean yours, you know, like I said, when I did hear yours, mainly around when I heard that you go surfing, like I think you said you do your meditation, yoga, and then go surfing. That's when I went, careful everyone listening, don't go and surf with no food from 5 o'clock.
Don't do it. And like, I've worked up to that.
Totally.
Yeah, and my body's like, and I feel it, like I know if I'm doing like my morning practice then go surfing and I'll stop eating, maybe not at the moment, but when I am doing my intermittent fasting, it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and maybe I don't eat again until sometimes midday the following day. So it's a big fast. Usually I stick around the 16-hour mark because because in that range, once you hit over like the 12, then the body starts getting rid of the old cells of the organs. So that's one of the reasons I do it, is to give the organs of the body an opportunity to get rid of the maybe the cells that don't function so well. But also I was told in the beginning, if I'm going to do fast that long, that it needs to be on my rest day.
Yeah. I know, I could just
Marie does not understand the word rest.
And then I looked at my schedule and I went,
surf's good.
I really want to do this fasting thing, but I can't see a day on my schedule where I'm resting. Yeah. So I just built up to it. So I would stop eating earlier and still have like breakfast before I went surfing. Yeah. And then it just got to a point where I just felt okay, like I could do it, and then obviously the next meal would be substantial. That would be my main meal.
And it's really going back to traditional ways of eating, you know, and it's the same as eating meat. Like we didn't have it all the time, you know, in hunter-gatherer periods. It was you went and got the whole animal, you brought it back, and I mean they would have been eating that kind of period, then they fasted.
Yeah. Maybe pick some nuts and berries up on the way. So, and this is how I started looking at it. It's like I don't always need to sit down and just have like everything all at once on the plate. I can, like this day, like today, I haven't eaten any form of protein at all, just because I haven't like you yourself. It's like I haven't had the urge. I've been drawn today to just eat fruit all day. Yeah, and that's all I've eaten. Yeah. So I think that instinct is still in us. Yeah, that primal instinct where it's like back then we didn't have a smorgasbord of things to go. Totally. I can just have everything all the time. It's like today we came across this, so we ate this. Yeah. Tomorrow we come across that.
And that kind of leads into a lot of people now eat for pleasure or distraction as opposed for hunger or nutrition or medicine. So that's another interesting avenue to travel down. But looking as well, when you look at a yoga practice, for example, traditionally they would cleanse the body before practicing. So there's a whole bunch of foul body cleansers that traditional yogis do, clearing out the sinuses and the throat and the digestive system. So you don't want food and additional things coming in there, because some of these purges are like swallowing a whole bunch of water and bringing it back up to cleanse the upper digestive system. So you don't want food as part of that. So they would start with a cleanse before going into the asana as well, and then looking at the energetic, the energy that the postures build in the body, relying on that energy, and then using food to support it if they did eat. There's a whole, they do a lot of fasting as well in traditional yogic, but traditionally speaking, that's...
Yeah, and I think, so the big difference from what I understand, so back then the people that were chosen to do yoga, it would be their life. So they wouldn't have a job to go, they wouldn't come to the studio at 6 a.m. and then go off and do whatever job they're doing, or you know, they would get chosen or choose to take on the path of the yogi, and that's all they would do. So I believe it's a lot different, and this is like the really good topic, and one of the main topics I think we're here for is debunking, or even just talking about this idea that you need to have a strict diet in order to be classed as a yogi. And I think the world has changed a lot, and that's why I think that idea of that diet is changing as well. So a lot of people believe that in order to be a yogi you need to be completely vegan,
and that comes from ahimsa, of do no harm, so non-violence. So I totally understand how that applies to like do no violence to other animals. Going back to personally, I need that animal protein in my body. I've had yogis scoff at me when I said that, of like my body needs, and it made me question of like, oh, maybe I don't. But then when I did go fully plant-based, got really sick. So but I think it comes back to being mindful. So being mindful, are you buying meat that is mass produced, or are you buying meat that has come from a farmer and has come from an animal that has had a really beautiful life? Like that's when I did visit New Zealand and I saw at this farm, the cattle farmer said like, these cows have the most beautiful life. They're so happy, and then one day they go to sleep. Like that's it. They don't. It would just be like a humane bullet, and then that cow would be butchered and used for sold to the village. So I think it's being really mindful.
Super sustainable.
Yeah, sustainable. So being mindful, like what kind of farming conditions are the animals in? What are their lives like? Because I had someone, I don't know the validity of this, but had someone tell me once, like, would you rather eat from an animal that has been in fear its whole life and had that adrenaline and those fear hormones pumping through its system, like that's potentially what you're eating, versus a happy animal? I don't know how much validity there is to that effect of the energy in the meat, the hormones in the meat, but I personally feel, in terms of a yogic philosophy of being mindful of what you're eating, how you're eating, where it's come from.
Totally. And even the volume people are eating.
Nice.
You know, and again, you meet plenty of local farmers. We're really lucky here in Newcastle to have the local farmers there, and buying, you know, eating meat a couple of times a week maybe, and the right size portion, as opposed to maybe driving to your local supermarket and buying something from you might not even know where, and you know, eating, you know, I used to work in a restaurant. I remember we would serve up a 900 gram ribeye. Some people would eat the whole thing themselves. I mean, that's excessive.
That's
same
a
as
lot.
fish. Like for me and my family, you know, if I do visit my family, they're always kind of laughing at me because I'll eat 140, 150 grams of fish as a serve, but even to go to a fish shop to get that, often they won't cut it for you that small, like it's at least 200, 250, and same when you go to a restaurant, you know, we're eating a lot more than what we need to as well. And there's again a lot of people locally that are really passionate about food waste and what we do with that, and You know, I know for me, like, I do not throw any food away. I don't throw it away. I'll either be giving it to someone, you know, or I eat what I've got. I really don't waste food, but you'll visit people's homes maybe, and you just see that people just kind of, there's a real disconnect from where our food has come from, the work and the love and the passion that goes into food. No, it's really quite and even this recent thing that just happened, you know, the things people were buying up with.
Totally.
Was just really interesting.
Yeah, we actually went to the supermarket when all this was happening, and we walked in and just went, we're sweet. Like, the stuff that we want to buy, all these mad people that are hoarding aren't buying this. They're buying all of this other stuff.
Pasta and flour. And there's a whole bunch of fruit and veg still.
All the fruit and veg is
still growing. It's still
the health food aisle was just loaded up.
Yeah.
I remember that, and I just went, and then it just showed me, like, the education that people have around food. I think there's like some deception when it comes to that. So at school we're shown like one way, like the pyramid, which is really cool. Like, I think that's like some really basic information to be given, and then we start watching TV and the way things are sold or like promoted to us is a lot different. So I think in the system there's like an agenda to have people buying more of certain things.
Totally. Well, even, you know, all the food marketing, the way we can label things, you know, you might pick something up that has the Aussie logo on it, but it doesn't mean the product's from there necessarily. You know, it could have been made here or something like that. And I'll just say it, but even the health star ratings that are used, you know, the food industry is on the advisory panel for that. So you have things like macadamia nuts or Greek yogurt that have a really low health star rating, but then some certain branded breakfast cereals, because it's just done on like an algorithm, have these really high health star ratings. And it's really difficult for families that are going to do their shop that pick up a box that says, I'm high in this, I'm high in that, I've got a 4.5 star health rating. But we don't need, you know, there's no labels on the fruit and veg saying I'm good for you. People know, we know it's good for us.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know, something like peanut butter is my other little, I guess, bugbear. You look at something like peanut butter in a supermarket, and it's just full of so much stuff, and it's hard to discern the difference. You should be able to get, it's just peanuts.
Just peanuts.
Just peanuts.
I go and get mine made for me in front of me. They just put a jar under the machine and put peanuts in it and then hand it to me. And I'm just like,
and it's no more expensive. It's really not.
And I think that's the misconception, what I was talking about with like the promoting or the advertising and stuff, is like there is this concept or this idea that people think when eating healthy or organic, it costs a lot more. And I just don't agree with that.
Neither.
I
think it takes a bit of practice and getting to know your brands and your farmers and things, so that it's not an overwhelming thing to do. Because once you know, and then you buy them when they're on sale too, so you might see your brand of something on sale. And again, if you have a farmer's market, so I work for, can I say? I work for a farm called Pillage Farm.
Pillage Farm. Do they have social media and stuff?
They do, yes. So it is just at Pillage Farm. So they've got the Instagram page.
Awesome. So we'll give plugins for all this, so you guys can go and check it all out.
Amazing. She also makes the best kombucha. So Erin makes your kombucha.
We've tasted it. Delicious.
So good.
Spice chai.
So Chris and Erin that have or run the stall there, some of the most passionate people I have met in this world. No sprays, no chemicals.
Awesome.
They're not certified organic because it's a massive process.
I looked into it once upon a time, like how to come under the organic farm. And it's crazy. Like you can't, you've got to prove that not one single spray has been used on the property for like 7 years or something.
And we have organic sprays, so
Yeah.
you can be buying organic and it's still got an organic spray in it.
Totally.
Whereas, get to know your local farmers and just ask the individual farmer, because you'll know straight away.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Chris and Erin, and the other thing they do so beautifully is they reuse everything. You know, like everything. So even with kombucha, and she makes beautiful jams and pastes and things, they'll always give a bit of money back for an empty jar or bottle.
Nice.
And you're supporting your local community.
Yep.
You know, a lot of us will talk or hear about things like the drought, and there'll be fundraisers and ways to donate, but the best way you can support people that have experienced drought, if you have access to them, is come to the farmers market.
Yeah.
And it's prevention. Like, food is medicine. This is how we stay well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think most places have farmers markets. I know even when, like my older brother, when he was in Sydney, like there's markets everywhere.
Yeah.
You choose to go and find them, then I think that's the key.
And a lot of online options now too, you know, a lot of communities, and, you know, I know for a lot of my friends, they'll always say they don't have time to go on the Sunday, but a lot of them are starting to do boxes.
Yep.
And again, here in Newcastle, you've got Stan at the local crop.
He's
So
amazing.
he's amazing.
Yeah,
That's where we get all our fruit and veg.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Is he still open from 8 till 6?
No,
No, he's
Oh, do you have to
online
change?
now.
Ah, cool.
Just
you can,
online.
you can click and collect, but it's before 12 o'clock.
You know.
We'll give local crop
Yep.
a tag as well.
Yeah, amazing guy.
Yeah, Stan's amazing.
Just keeping it simple, easy, cost effective,
Yep.
and enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've gone on so many different tangents, but there's so much you could go forever about, because there is so much information, and this is just us talking broadly as well about nutrition, about the science of it, about how it can relate to your yogic and your meditation practices. But in a nutshell, what I've learned from everything that we've been talking about is looking at food as medicine, like what gives you energy and what strips it away from you. And that's going to be different for everyone, and perhaps it'll shift in the context. So the story you mentioned about mum's cake, your friend's mum's cake, like maybe just going and having chocolate cake in another context would have stripped energy, but in that moment it felt so enriching.
Yeah, well, this is like, it's a big thing. It's like the state of your mental wellness. It's like in that moment, like, and this is where the topic went, the conversation went. It's like, because he was talking to me about it, I was actually eating something at the time which sparked the conversation. And he said it would have actually caused harm to reject it. Like, my mother just, like,
her
she
love
knew I was
in it.
And it's like his mum just made the cake for him because he was coming over, and she knew that he loved it as a kid. And then, so in that moment to like reject it, just because maybe it's got some sugar in it, actually would cause like harm in that process.
And you could probably assume that the ingredients, you know, there's nothing wrong with eating like good quality butter and good quality flours and, you know, a bit of sugar every now and again.
Yeah,
it's
the body can deal with it.
The chemicals and the additives that are in food products. So yeah, like a homemade cake from mum that she's been doing for years. I'd go for it.
100%. So I work off this concept, like to like have the balance. I choose like 80-20, 80% healthy, and then allow that 20% for whatever. And it's just like, you can't run it too strict, because like when you go out for dinner with your friends, it's just like, you don't want to be that person like looking at the
there may
menu.
be people who want to be that person.
Totally. But I think there's like, give yourself the freedom, like don't pull back on life's pleasures because you want to be so strict on it. I think that can begin to cause like some mental health trouble when it's too
unless
strict.
you enjoy, I'm going to defer that with unless you enjoy that discipline.
If it's bringing you joy,
because I know some beautiful vegan people that are vegan for a variety of reasons. They're more than happy to be that person to have the discussion with the waiter of like, I don't see you don't have anything vegan on your menu. What could be made vegan? We're happy, and they're lovely with it. They're not like you should be vegan, there should be something vegan here, but they're very comfortable.
Totally.
They're like, I don't want a garden salad, I actually want to eat. Like, what? What can I do? As we start to wrap this up, any final thoughts, Mo?
Tips. Give us 5.
Ooh.
5 tips.
Oh, all me.
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
5 tips that they can take away and implement into their daily.
Okay.
Their daily eating practice.
Well, yeah. Look, I think one of the key ones is your macronutrients. All of them are really important. So your protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Loading up on your fruit and veg, because fiber is really, really important. We haven't even touched on kind of gut health specifically.
You can come back.
I think the third one is, it just came up then when you were talking about, you know, people and being out to dinner. I certainly reached out to a nutritionist myself back in December because I was getting a bit stuck again, and she said a beautiful thing to me around, you know, she just said, it's kind of your motivation for choosing food. So at that point she had said to me, I want you to go and like eat just something for fun, because you can start to get super, super serious about it. You know, so if something's put in front of you and you're like, oh, I shouldn't, everyone else can, but I shouldn't, and you really want to, eat it. You know, have a bit of fun with it. Fourth one is probably, I will say it, look, I think reducing the toxins is really key. So it's not about not having your treats. Even if I was to talk about alcohol, for example, you know, I certainly have a drink every now and again. Again, it's about my motivations for drinking, but you can't put depressants in the body regularly and expect to feel calm. You know, we can't put stimulants and depressants, you sort of touched on that earlier, into the body a lot and expect to be content. And so
I like that.
Yeah, I just, it's I guess one of my biggest passions is just watching and even people really close to me, you know, if we are feeling down and maybe using things like alcohol, and then we are starting to go down the medication route, to me, sleep's super important, reducing the toxins and loading up on the good stuff kind of first, and then you know, as we need other support, you know, medication might be an option for people. And then fifth is yoga and meditation or finding your joy, you know, what brings you joy. Even the concept to me of being happy is unrealistic. Like when we say I want to be happy, it's not even really a concept I can picture in my head, but when someone says to me, you know, what brings you joy, you have these kind of memories and things. So it's sort of, when I do get a little bit stuck or maybe start to focus on my food too much, it's about finding the things that bring me joy and doing more of those, and just always tiptoeing towards them. You know, it's like maybe you're having a day that's super tough. Instead of reaching for something that might make it worse, just tiptoe, maybe call a friend, put on a song and dance around your lounge room.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of trying to do bits.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I do work out at Alicia Health Retreat at the moment, so we'll be reopening.
Give that a tag as well.
Yeah, we'll be reopening, I think, towards the end of July.
Awesome.
I have just started in the Hunter Valley, so we're in Port Colborne.
Sweet.
Amazing retreat. So yeah, just based on rest, nutrition, movement, connection. We have no mobile phones. That's amazing. And I do have a little Instagram page that I've just kind of played with because it's not so much my thing. So that's called at Spirited Nutrition.
Sweet. And tag that one as well.
Yeah, otherwise reach out to us here. I'll be here. I'll be here a lot when I can.
Forever here, sipping tea, doing yoga.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jennah, for sharing
Thank you.
your knowledge and taking the time. You always speak with such I don't know, heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely a devotion behind any conversation that I've had with you. There's like the topic of conversation, whatever it is, there's always this devotion to what you talk about.
Consideration.
Yeah.
I think I just like, now that I've reflected on how I've got here, it's the simplicity, you know, it's not easy, but the simplicity of nature and making things easy. It's a whole lot easier than making them hard, which I did for a long time.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks, the Open Mind Space.
Thanks, the Open Mind Space.
Give that a plug as well. Awesome.
Till next time.
Yeah. This is podcast number 4.
Sure.
Got it right, I betcha. Stay tuned. We'll have some more coming. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you soon, either on these platforms or in person.